Ja, men där önskar vi er tillbaka. Välkomna tillbaka till Stora Aktiedagen efter lunch här. Hoppas att det smakade bra. Och nu ska vi faktiskt byta till engelska. Now we have an international audience watching apparently. So today we're going to listen to Rhovac and the CEO Anders Månsson in English. So please, Anders, take the stage.
Thank you. So hello and welcome to the Rhovac presentation. My name is Anders Månsson. I'm the CEO of the company. And Rhovac, for those of you who do not know the company, is a company that specializes in immuno-oncology. And namely, we specialize in targeting metastatic cancer cells to prevent cancer recurrence. We're a clinical stage phase 2B company in prostate cancer, and we're looking for a partner after our study conclusion, which will take place early 2022. I've chosen to do this presentation in English today because I know that there will be international stakeholders listening. And the reason I know that is the good news that came last week when we were awarded fast-track designation by the US FDA, Food and Drug Administration, for our project. This is an honor bestowed on very few companies, on very few projects, and the reason for doing this is that the FDA has identified our project as a unique project that potentially satisfies an unmet medical need in a large, important indication. Let me tell you more about that as we move through the presentation. The first slide is only a safe harbor statement. We're listed at the Swedish Spotlight Stock Market Exchange. But let's start the journey with the patient. This is the patient that we aspire to help with our project. This is a patient that I think we all know, not only us who work in the pharmaceutical industry, but perhaps also all of us who have next of kin acquaintances who've been suffered from cancer. This is the patient who's diagnosed with cancer, who's treated initially successfully for that cancer, only to find, perhaps months or even years later, that the cancer has returned and now in its metastatic state with a far worse prognosis. As I suggest to you that this is potentially somebody we all know, you will understand the magnitude of the unmet medical need that we're addressing here. And this is also what the FDA has recognized. In plain text, the general objective of our drug candidate RV001 is to prevent cancer recurrence after initially successful primary tumor therapy by eliminating potentially remaining metastatic cancer cells. Now, let me deconstruct that sentence for you. So we're not aiming our therapy towards the primary tumor, and we're not aiming it towards metastatic, already manifest in solid tumors. But we're coming in at a stage or at a setting when these metastatic cancer cells have left the primary tumor and when there are only seeds in the body but have not yet flowered as metastases. This is a very common state, and therefore this is a huge unmet medical need that we're addressing. Let me show you an email that I was sent only last week when the fast-track designation announcement was made. This is an email that I've anonymized and abbreviated a bit, but it basically addresses why we're doing this. It goes like this. Hi, your drug would be the holy grail for patients like me. Surgery, prostatectomy in 2016. The PSA has crept up and no oncologist want to do MRI until I approach 0.1 or 0.2 in PSA. This is stressful. Is there a trial in the US that I might qualify for? Yes, there is. Thanks for your reply. Good luck. The patients need your drug if successful. I think this speaks also on an emotional level as to what we're doing and why it is so important. What is the mechanism of action? Why do we think that we can help these patients? Well, our concept rests on 3 pillars. One is a proven technology, which is sometimes referred to as cancer vaccination, or in our case, more specifically, antigen-based T-cell activation via dendritic cells and antigen-presenting cells, which you will see on the left of the screen here. So there's nothing unique about this. This is a well-tried concept, but we've introduced 2 new unique points. One is our target protein, Rho-C, which is the very protein that renders the metastatic cells able to migrate out in the body, leave the primary tumor, and find other tissues from which they can start to grow metastases. And the second new parameter is the treatment paradigm, as I tried to explain earlier. This is a prevented nip-it-in-the-bud approach, at least as monotherapy. We could possibly, our drug could possibly be put to good use also as combination therapy in later stages. But as monotherapy, we want to concentrate on where we think the immune system is able to combat these cells, and that is before they have manifested themselves as solid metastases. Let me expand a bit on the protein Rho-C. You will see on the left of the slide here that Rho-C is a protein that is involved in many stages of cancer development. But let me highlight the key points here. Overexpression of the protein Rho-C is cancer-specific, and it is unique to metastatic cancer cells and cancer stem cells. And Rho-C is, as far as we know today, indispensable for metastases, i.e. if there is no Rho-C, there can be no metastases. And it's irrespective of tissue type, which is very important, because if we are able to produce a proof of concept in prostate cancer, there is no reason to believe that we wouldn't be able to do the same thing in other cancers, which is why the potential is so unique and so humongous. And T cells, we've shown in our previous preclinical and clinical research that we can activate T cells to eliminate cancer cells overexpressing Rho-C. Okay, so that's the scientific concept, but we, of course, have come beyond that now. We're involved in late-stage clinical therapy here. We're in phase 2B in prostate cancer, and the aim of our trial is to show that we're able to prevent progression in prostate cancer patients with biochemical failure after curative intent therapy. And biochemical failure is a rising PSA. This is a large study of 180 patients that will take place across 40 centers, both in Europe and in the United States. We aim to finalize recruitment by Q2 of next year, and we aim to conclude the study and compute the results early 2022. But as I alluded to before, even when having concluded this in prostate cancer, the field would in that case be open for expansion both within prostate cancer. We could go to earlier stage patients who might not want to undergo surgery or radiation because of the side effects of those treatments and help them avoid a metastatic disease state. We could also go to later stage patients. There are ample different kinds of therapies for later stage patients, mainly in hormonal treatment or androgen deprivation therapy, or ADT for short. The problem with these kinds of treatment is that they only target hormone-sensitive metastatic cells. However, our product does not discriminate against non-hormone sensitive cells and hormone-sensitive cells, so there will be ample synergy in using the two together. However, I feel that the real potential, the really big potential for expansion would be in moving in the same setting, trying to prevent metastatic state cancer also outside of prostate cancer. And the beauty is, of course, that Rho-C is not specific to any particular type of cancer, so there would be no reason to believe, if it works in prostate cancer, that it would not work also in other types of cancer. A few words on the compound and formulation per se. It's a 20 amino acid peptide fraction of Rho-C that we're giving, plus the adjuvant montanide. The fact that it's a peptide only means that it's not cumbersome to produce, and therefore it is relatively inexpensive to produce, which means that, of course, it could satisfy also a mass market. And indeed, we're not going for specialized cases of late-stage patients here. We're going for a mass market of primary therapy. Also, we do have solid patent protection, and further market exclusivity would be offered by the biologic license application that would take this drug to market eventually. A biologic license application offers 10 to 12 years of extra exclusivity from the authorization that you get. Okay, so this is the current state and what we're doing currently. Let's look at what we have already produced. In 2018, we concluded a phase 1/2 trial in prostate cancer also. This was recently extrapolated on and elaborated on in an article produced only a few weeks ago. The study included about 22 patients. There were 11 subcutaneous injections here over the course of 30 weeks, so slightly shorter than the program that we're applying now for the phase 2. Patients reported only mild, which is grade 2 or less reversible, injection site reactions, so slight pain at the injection site, which was reversible, so no problem there. And in terms of the effectiveness of the treatment, we saw a significant and long-lasting Rho-C specific immune response in 86% of the patients right after the last injection. And interestingly, we also saw that in 86% of the patients a year after the last injection. So it seems that the immune response that we're generating is long-lasting, which is obviously of great importance as we're treating these patients preventively. In the patients that were not in complete PSA remission, but that had measurable PSA values, we did see that our treatment initiated an extension of the PSA doubling time, which indicates that we have a procrastination of the disease progression. So obviously, this is a small study of only 22 patients, but we could have not wished for better results. Okay, so far I've been telling you things straight from my mouth, of course, but as I work for the company, I obviously could have some bias in the matter, but I would advise any prospective shareholders to also look at the third-party validations that we have for our concept. We have that on the left side of the slide from the European Research and Innovation Fund Horizon 2020. We've been given grants from this institution twice, both in phase 1 and 2. And the last time was last summer, when we were given 2.5 million euros as a grant. And we were given this with a motivation that this is a potential game changer for cancer therapy. So very, very prestigious words there. Of course, we also have the permission to do the large-scale trials that we're currently doing in both Europe and in the United States. So both the FDA and the EMEA have scrutinized our data and found it to be sufficient to endorse the studies that we're currently undertaking. And again, perhaps most importantly, last week, not only do we have a permission to do the trial, but we're being prioritized by the FDA in the fast-track designation that we received last week. This is obviously very important for the ongoing development of this project. This will mean that the FDA will prioritize the review of it because they have identified it as pertaining to a large unmet medical need in an important disease, which is prostate cancer. This is obviously also of significance for us because this will mean that potential partners will sit up and pay attention to what we do. So we will have been given a priority tag, which is of significant importance for us. Also, I would advise any prospective shareholders to read in on the analyses that have been made on Rhovac. So there are two analyses available these days. One is Edison, or the Edison Group. They've made a thorough analysis of our company and our project, and they've come up with the indicative valuation of 1.2 billion Swedish kronor. And then we have Aktiespararna's own analysis, which is done by Analysguiden. And they've also done a thorough analysis of our company, and they've come up with an indicative valuation of 800 million Swedish crowns. And this translates into 64 Swedish kronor per share and 43 krona per share in the respective analyses. Two things are important about these analyses. They both consider the value in prostate cancer only. The value in other indications is also recognized conceptually, but it is not a part of the calculated valuation. And another important point, only the Edison analysis considers the value of the fast-track designation as yet, as it came in only last week. So I would encourage all would-be shareholders to study these materials in great detail. Sometimes I hear the complaint or the criticism that these analyses are perhaps tainted with subjectivity because we actually pay these institutions to do them. I think that is very much exaggerated, but just to point out that it is exaggerated, I would like to turn your attention to a bit of business intelligence forecasting. There are many institutions that do forecasting in the prostate cancer field. We have bought a report from a company called Delve Insight, but there are plenty of others. But just to give you an example of the forecasting that is being made for our project, we have a forecasting here that shows almost $1 billion by 2030. And this is for sure a company that is completely independent of Rhovac. So going into slightly greater detail into the Edison analysis for our company, Edison has produced a number of deal benchmarks which we could possibly emulate if we're successful. So looking at the column, the first left column of the numbers that you see on the slide, you can see the upfront payment of these deals, and obviously each deal is unique. Perhaps the most pertinent one is the one in the middle, which concerns prostate cancer, but our compound is obviously also possible to use for other cancers if we get the proof of concept. The medium value for an upfront payment here is $120 million US, which I think is a target to aim for. And the total milestones is here worth more than $1 billion. Of course, these have to be risk adjusted. They have to be risk adjusted by what the probability of success of actually coming through the phase 2 is. And then for the rest of the milestones, the probability for coming through to phase 3 and regulatory and eventually market approval. So if we look at the trusted benchmarks for oncology success in phase 2, we can see that IQVIA present numbers of 35% to 51%. Now, these are for all kinds of projects. I would like to emphasize also that the indication that we're going for doesn't have any competing therapy. So I would assume that we would be on the sort of upper end of that probability scale. And if you look at the upfront payment that we would attain after a successful completion of phase 2, that would be $100 million roughly, and that is the one that you have to do the risk adjustment on. And then if you move on, you can see the likelihood of going through to phase 3 and market authorization being somewhere between 30 and 70%, and that likelihood is the one that you have to adjust the total deal value with. So this would be Edison, but I turn your attention to also to the Analysguiden projections of potential deals to emulate. They have a similar story. Obviously, it's not too different, but $100 million US. And of course, you have to multiply with the probability of success, and then the same type of deal value, which of course can be very extensive, especially if we're able to migrate out of the prostate cancer indication as well. So far about the project itself, about the development of the project, about the value of the project. Now let's look into the organization that we have at Rhovac. Is this an organization that can not only do the development work that produces the value, but actually make us realize that value after the completion of the phase 2B project? I suggest to you that we do have that kind of organization. My own experience is mainly with big pharma company. I've worked in mergers and acquisitions, done a lot of licensing deals as well, led many global transactions up to $700 million US deal value. We also have ample experience in our CFO, who supported a slew of transactions from biotech to larger pharmaceutical companies, and solid experience in our chief development officer, who's also experienced from large pharmaceutical company. All of us are hired into this company. We're not inventors who are in love with our own project, but we are professional managers, and we will take this to fruition. Perhaps this slide, most important section, is actually the senior advisors that we have. We put together a scientific advisory board to help us with the development aspects that still remain, but also in the contacts with our would-be partners. And perhaps the name to highlight the most is Professor Per Anders Abrahamsson, who is the used to be the Secretary General of the European Association of Urology, which is the very organization that predicts and gives guidelines to how to handle prostate cancer therapy in Europe. So quite a significant prominence in this group, which is also validation of our project. So if I summarize, RV001 is currently in clinical phase 2B for prostate cancer. It is validated by a slew of stakeholders. It is backed by the European Horizon 2020 program. If we attain the proof of concept in prostate cancer, which we're currently going for in our phase 2B here, the field is open for indication expansion, both within prostate cancer, going earlier and later, but also into other cancers. We're very clear and transparent about our strategy. We're a biotech company. We should not do anything after phase 2B. So we're going for a partnership deal, which could be a license deal or even a divestment or acquisition deal. And we could possibly go for an option deal prior to that. And that is certainly made more possible by the FDA fast-track approval that has really caused a lot of attention in the international arena in the last week. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Anders. So I welcome you over here to my corner of the room. So you said in the Q3 report that this has been a groundbreaking year for Rhovac. And of course, we've been talking about this fast-track status, but what else has happened?
Oh, so many things have happened in the last year, I think. I mean, we've got started with our clinical phase 2B, and as I said, this is the final step. We're doing some other research alongside of this. We're doing some preclinical research to complement the thing that we already have. We're doing some formulation development, but obviously the key thing is that we're now engaged in a large clinical trial, which will make or break this project.
Yes. How many patients have you included so far?
I don't remember exactly, but I think we are roughly halfway to the target, and we're aiming for 180.
And what is happening to these patients right now?
Well, they're being treated with our compound. Well, of course, they're randomized, so either they have placebo or they have our compound.
And you're performing this study in 7 different countries, right?
That's probably true, yes. 6 countries in Europe and the US.
Yeah,
that makes
and why
7,
is
yes.
this?
Well, we just want to get access to as many patients as possible in the time space that we have set aside for this. So this is the reason for doing it internationally. And also adding the US, which was a late idea, is of tremendous significance, I think. I think it's great to do the study in the US also from a pre-launch perspective.
And of course, it's 2020, so we need to talk about how have you been affected by the COVID situation?
Yes, we have been affected because our recruitment pace in the study is not what we anticipated originally. I don't think it is for anybody. But the good thing is that we had a solid financing round last year, so we're able to endure, and we're able to actually to spend some extra money to increase the number of sites in the US that is coming on board this project. And incidentally, since the fast-track designation, I actually had a spontaneous request from a very prominent clinic in the US wanting to join our study. So this is helping also in terms of recruiting patients.
That's good news. But, I mean, as we see the situation now, we don't know how long we're going to be in this state of the world. So could it continue to delay you going forward?
Yeah, but we have already anticipated that we're going to recruit roughly at the half the pace that we originally anticipated. Of course, if there is an unexpected 3rd wave, 4th wave, yes, it could have an impact. But I think before that could happen, we will have recruited most of the patients, so we wouldn't be terribly impacted.
And also, I actually did read the analysis you were talking about.
Good.
And it also says that you worked thoroughly with the design of your 2B study to increase the likelihood of success. So what have you done in this respect?
Yeah, I mean, I think the design of the study, the choice of the type of patients that we're treating is a good one, because there is no other therapy available for these patients. So obviously that means that it's relevant that we compare ourselves to placebo. So maybe that is what is referred to in the analysis.
And also you say that, I mean, it's a huge range of cancer types you could turn to if this turns out successful. Yes. But how big an effort is it? How much developing does it take to turn to other types of cancer?
Well, it takes a lot of money to do it in parallel, because, I mean, what we anticipate would happen after a partnership is that a partner would take over and do a phase 3 trial in pretty much the same setting as we're currently doing the phase 2 in prostate cancer. But in parallel to that, it would be wise to do perhaps phase 2 trials in melanoma, in colon cancer, in breast cancer perhaps. We already have preclinical evidence that it actually works conceptually in those cancers. So at least those cancers would be our advice to a potential partner.
Also, you did have some publicity the year that passed. How is it? Have you seen any effects of this?
Yes, I mean, as I alluded to, the fact that we had so much publicity last week was great for us, because a great number of stakeholders have contacted us since. I mean, I showed the patient slide. Some patients have identified that there is something coming in prostate cancer, which is great. Some clinics have contacted us because they want to join our trial, which is also great. And obviously this news is something that makes every potential partner sit up and pay attention to what we're doing. So it's great from every aspect. And
so you are in discussions with the potential partners?
Yes, so we have about 20 companies that we are in dialogue with, and we would like to expand that, and I think this news will help us do that. of course, this is like working on a long list. Sometime during the course of next year, we'll try to shorten that list and have a few companies that we're able to take into final stages of negotiation, provided, of course, that the study produces the results that we expect.
And these potential partners, so how many did you need to call and how many actually found you?
Well, we find each other, I think, at the typical conventions, the meetings in oncology and urology, and in some business-oriented meeting like Bio and JP Morgan, etc., that we've attended.
And also, I mean, of course, there are many companies or developers wanting to fight the war against cancer. Could we talk about something called competition, or is there just room and a need for everyone?
There is a room and a need for everyone because, I mean, many different compounds target different stages of cancer. And I try to identify that we're sort of not going for the primary tumor. We're not going for the solid manifest tumors, at least not as monotherapy. But we're trying to strike at the seeds of metastatic cancers while it's still in the seed stage. And there is nothing available for the prostate cancer patients in this. And of course, every cancer is unique. There might be other forms of competition in this setting in other cancers. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to be better than they might be.
And I also read some fact that during 2018, immunotherapy was used with 200,000 patients in the US. So if you can elaborate a little bit on what would this figure look like in, say, 5 years?
Immunotherapy,
yeah.
I think it's really making an inroads in cancer. Many cancers have cure rates that were unimaginable 10 years ago. I think melanoma might be an example of that. That has really seen a soar in the cure rate. And we hope to have our compound affect first and foremost the prostate cancer patients in the same way.
So do you think could immunotherapy like replace the more traditional cancer treatments that affect people a lot?
To some extent, I think replace, because a lot of the old treatments are ridden with side effects that you would like to avoid. So it would be a displacement of those therapies. I don't think that these old therapies will completely go away, especially in the final stages. They might add effectiveness, and at these stages, the patients might accept the side effects in order to prolong life. So I think there is room for everybody, but I think immune therapy will take a greater and greater market share of the treatment of cancer in general.
Also, I want to ask you a bit more personal question. So when you came into this company, if you could see where we stand today, what would you feel?
When I came into the company, if I could see where we are today.
If you could see then where we are today, what would you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that this is what I did see when I joined the company.
Okay.
Maybe the fast track designation was not a sure thing, but it was certainly something that we knew that we could possibly attain.
And how important is it to you, this fast track designation? Like how many new, how does it improve your, how much does it improve your possibilities?
It improves tremendously, and I think that is something that perhaps the general public have not fully appreciated yet. Because we're now in a very exclusive category of projects that have been given this priority tag. So when a partner looks for something in prostate cancer or in cancer in general, let's say that that's 100 projects. Now we're in the exclusive group of 10 that have FDA priority. That's a big difference.
So it's not only about the time that you actually save, because it goes from, was it like 10 months to 6 months, or am I wrong?
Yes, it's not
so
only
it doesn't
about,
sound like a big difference.
No, I mean there's a practical difference, and that will be an advantage that is on our partner. We won't benefit from that advantage. That's on the partner. But I think the greatest advantage is that the FDA has reviewed the data and found it to be so strong as to give it this prioritization. And I think that the significance of that is greater than the practical advantage in itself.
And now we're soon done, but I want to ask you, so when you get back to the office this afternoon or tomorrow,
I won't make it this afternoon.
No, that's okay with me. So tomorrow morning, what will be your main focus?
Tomorrow morning, I know that we have more interest from the press. I'll try to address that. And then we have some management meetings tomorrow, which I cannot disclose the details of. So.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Well, that sounds like an interesting day at work.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Anders and Rhovac, and good luck.
Thank you so much.